The story of terrestrial gigantism is often dominated by the massive, long-necked dinosaurs of the Mesozoic. But the history of life is far more creative than a single reptilian dynasty. Millions of years after the collapse of those ancient empires, the mammalian lineage produced its own legendary titan that pushed the absolute boundaries of what a warm-blooded animal could achieve on land. This was Paraceratherium, a hornless rhinoceros relative that stands as the undisputed champion of mammalian mass. Thriving during the Oligocene Epoch, approximately 34 to 23 million years ago, this colossal creature redefined the limits of biological engineering. It was a living fortress and a biological skyscraper that haunted the floodplains and deep woodlands of ancient Eurasia. In the grand narrative of life after the dinosaurs, it remains the ultimate proof that mammals did not just inherit the Earth, but conquered it by scaling up to proportions that seem almost mythological. Moving with a slow and deliberate power, it was the monarch of a lost world where the forests were deep and the giants were hairy. To truly appreciate how this animal dominated its world, one must first look at the specialized tools it carried on its neck. You might assume that, as a relative of the rhinoceros, this animal would sport a massive horn for defense or social display, but that was not the case at all. Paraceratherium was entirely hornless, because when an animal reaches 20 tons of pure muscle and bone, very few creatures are foolish enough to pick a fight with it. Instead of a horn, the animal evolved a skull that was a masterpiece of specialized feeding, trading defensive weapons for the reach and precision needed to dominate the forest canopy. Its primary source of nutrition was a diet of high-level leaves and twigs, allowing it to exploit a nutritional niche far above the reach of its competitors. The mouth was equipped with a pair of downward-pointing upper incisors and upward-pointing lower incisors that functioned like a massive pair of biological pliers. This dental arrangement allowed the animal to reach into the trees, grab a thick branch, and strip the leaves off with incredible efficiency. Its lips were likely thick, muscular, and prehensile, much like those of a modern black rhino or a giraffe. This allowed it to be a picky eater despite its massive size, selecting only the most nutritious leaves while avoiding the thorns that would bother lesser herbivores. It was essentially the ultimate top-shelf diner of the Oligocene, accessing a food source that no other land mammal could hope to reach. The skull itself was lightened by large air-filled cavities to ensure the animal could move its massive head without wasting immense amounts of energy. When discussing the physical presence of Paraceratherium, the word big is a massive understatement. This creature was an absolute unit of biological engineering that redefined the scale of mammalian life. To grasp its scale, one must imagine standing next to a beast where the shoulder alone reaches nearly 5.2 meters off the ground. A human being of average height would barely reach the knees of this animal, while the creature itself would be busy ignoring everything on the ground to feed on branches located 2 stories in the air. This titan achieved a total body length ranging from 7.4 to 8 meters, making it a dominating force in any environment it occupied. The most staggering aspect of its biology was its mass. A fully grown adult could weigh between 15 and 20 tons. To put that into a modern perspective, you would need to combine at least 3 or 4 of the largest African elephants into a single body to match the bulk of one Paraceratherium, as a modern elephant typically weighs only about 6 tons. Supporting this weight required nature to get creative with skeletal architecture. The legs were not merely limbs but were massive, pillar-like columns of dense bone and muscle. Unlike smaller mammals, these legs were positioned directly under the body to handle the extreme downward force of 20 tons. If the legs were even slightly angled, the bones would likely have snapped under the pressure of the animal's own weight. Being that massive comes with a very hot problem known as internal heat management. When a body reaches the scale of a Paraceratherium, it produces an immense amount of heat, simply by existing and digesting food. Because the volume of the animal is so large compared to its skin surface area, it faces a challenge where it becomes very easy to overheat and very difficult to cool down. To survive, these giants likely utilized several biological hacks to manage their temperature. Much like modern elephants, they may have used large, vein-rich ears to radiate heat away from their core and into the air. Furthermore, most experts believe that as they evolved to be larger, they experienced a total loss of hair. Thick fur is a great advantage for a small mammal, but for a 20-ton giant, it would be equivalent to wearing a parka in a sauna. Another vital strategy involved mud baths. Just like their modern rhinoceros cousins, they probably spent a significant amount of time wallowing in cool mud. This behavior protected their sensitive skin from the sun, while providing a layer of evaporative cooling to lower their core temperature. The world of Paraceratherium was a land in transition. The Oligocene Epoch was a time of global cooling and drying, as the lush tropical hothouse of the earlier Eocene gave way to more seasonal environments. This giant mammal shared its environment with a diverse cast of characters that occupied the lower levels of the forest. In the undergrowth, smaller rhinoceroses, early horses, and strange, pig-like entelodonts scurried through the brush. However, for a fully grown Paraceratherium, there were virtually no natural predators. Its sheer size was its primary defense, because no carnivore of the time was large enough or powerful enough to threaten an adult. Only the juveniles would have been vulnerable to the ambush tactics of primitive carnivores. This lack of predatory pressure allowed the species to range widely across the continent of Eurasia, following the seasonal growth of its favorite trees and dominating the landscape for over 10 million years. The best part about being an adult was the total peace of mind. For a fully grown individual, the world was essentially a no-predator zone. This safety allowed the giants to live a very slow and deliberate life. They did not have to worry about sneaking through the shadows or hiding from threats. They walked where they wanted and ate what they wanted. This long lifespan, possibly reaching 70 years or more, would have allowed for the transmission of social knowledge, such as the location of reliable water sources during the shifting seasons. We suspect they were K-strategists, meaning they had very few babies, but invested a massive amount of time and energy into making sure those offspring reached a size where they were finally safe from the world's predators. Everything was going perfectly for the Paraceratherium until the environment began to shift in a way that its massive body could not easily handle. As the Oligocene moved toward the Miocene, the global climate became colder and much drier. Those lush, deep forests that the giants relied upon started to shrink, slowly being replaced by open grasslands and savannas. The problem was that this animal was a specialist. It was built specifically for trees and high-level browsing. Grass is a completely different food source that is tough, full of grit from the soil, and requires a totally different dental and digestive setup to process effectively. Habitat loss was only one part of the equation, because, while the forests were shrinking, a new group of competitors was moving in from Africa. These were the early elephants. These early proboscideans were like a high-tech upgrade of the browsing model. They possessed trunks, which are essentially the Swiss Army knives of the animal kingdom. A trunk can reach higher, grab more, dig for water, and even strip bark more efficiently than the beak-like teeth of a rhinoceros. The competition for dwindling resources became fierce. Between the loss of their favorite food and the arrival of these versatile new neighbors, the reign of the hornless beast finally came to an end. It is a sobering reminder that even the most powerful titans can be brought down by a changing world and a more adaptable competitor. By approximately 23 million years ago, the largest land mammal to ever live had vanished from the Earth, leaving only its massive bones to tell the story of a time when mammals reached the size of gods. The legacy of Paraceratherium remains a masterpiece of biological engineering, proving that mammalian life was capable of achieving staggering proportions in the wake of the dinosaurian collapse. From its pillar-like limbs to its specialized, high-reaching neck, it stands as a testament to the power of adaptation. It reminds us that the Cenozoic era was not just the age of mammals because of our own ancestors, but because of the incredible diversity of giants that once claimed the Earth as their own. Every time a new bone is discovered in the Bugti Hills of Pakistan or the vast plains of the Gobi Desert, we learn a little more about the limits of biology and the incredible ways life adapts to its surroundings. This giant is a symbol of a lost era, a time when Central Asia was a green paradise of giants. The ghost of the thunderous titan still echoes in the massive skeletons we find today, serving as a silent reminder that once upon a time, a hairy, hornless rhino was the most powerful thing walking the face of the Earth.